How's it going, everyone? It's Boston Bruins Memes here, and I'm very excited to launch the official Boston Bruins Memes podcast with the first episode today. And before we begin, I just want to give a bit of a rundown on what I plan to do with this podcast. So we're obviously going to be talking about the Bruins and what's going on in the NHL, but we're also going to be talking about the Bruins games during the week, as I plan to put a new episode out every week. Obviously, there will be different times where I won't be able to do that, but for the most part, I'm going to try and stay consistent to get a new episode out every week. I'm very excited to launch this because I've been trying to branch out in content spaces for a very long time, and this is part of my journey to hopefully become a sports journalist someday. And it is made possible because of all of you, and I can't thank you all enough. And also, as a way to give back to my fans, I'd like to officially announce that I'm going to be having guests in this podcast. And the way you can become a guest is you can DM me on my Instagram account, which will be the link in the description, and you'll be put in the list. If you're interested in joining, you can be a Bruins fan, or you cannot be a Bruins fan. You can be a Leafs fan. You can be a Canadiens fan. But without further ado, I'm excited to get this first episode rolling, so let's go ahead and get right into it. So for our first topic I'd like to discuss the state of the Boston Bruins and what exactly that is. So let's get right into it, and I think the best place to start off is the center core, which was the most controversial thing last season for the Bruins, I think, as they really obviously lost a lot at center depth with losing Krejci and Bergeron, and they didn't really replace that using external uses. They obviously solved it internally because they didn't have a lot of resources available to them to go ahead and make moves to be able to, fix that issue at the time. And I thought Coyle and Zacha did a pretty good job last year, all things considered. Coyle obviously having a career year. And I'm not sure if Zacha had a career year last year. I know he did the previous year, but I still thought he had a solid year. And I thought they were both pretty good on both sides of the puck. One of the biggest issues, though, was faceoffs. And it killed us, I think, in the playoffs. Like, we really saw that in the Florida series and even a little bit in the Toronto series, especially in games 5 and 6 against the Leafs. That murdered us. And I thought Boston addressed that pretty well with free agency, getting Elias Lindholm. Now, Elias Lindholm is not a star number one center. I mean, obviously, I think he's a number one C. I think he's on the lower end of that. But he's still very good, and he's very serviceable. And I think he's really going to help you on the power play. And again, adding more scoring. And I think scoring down the middle is so crucial. But by doing that, they kind of had to sacrifice some top 6 talent on the wing by losing DeBrusk. And they decided to use that money to go and acquire another defenseman, which I think was smart. But we'll talk about that in a little bit. But overall, I think if you look at the Bruins lineup, what exactly their center core is going to be. So it's going to be Lindholm, Coyle, Patra, Beecher. I like that. I think that's pretty good. And I don't think Coyle is like an elite 2C. I think he's a serviceable 2C. But that's a center core that I can get behind, and I think it's a center core that can push you deep in the playoffs, especially when your defense is so good and you have a center core that's good enough that can push you to another level in the playoffs. I think that's just so helpful. Defense wins championships. We just saw the best example of that with the Florida Panthers. Obviously, they lost a lot of defense in free agency, and this is going to be hinting at my standings predictions, which are going to be very controversial when they come out. So just be prepared for that. But yeah, I like the center core they're going into the season with. I don't think it's the best in the league, but I think it's addressed, and I think it's better than it was last year. And Patra, I'm hoping it will grow to hopefully be able to become a high-end 2C, I think is what his ceiling is, and hopefully he can reach that. So that's kind of my thoughts there. Now, we can talk about the Nikita Zadorov signing shortly, because I do want to touch on it a little. I think it's the most controversial signing the Bruins made. Seeing a lot of people saying Zadorov's overrated, only had a good playoff. I mean, we don't know. We locked him up long-term, and I love Zadorov. I love the player. Locking him up long-term, I wasn't thrilled about, but I think we really kind of saw a breakout year from him last year. So if he can stay consistently, he's the perfect pairing for McAvoy. But make no mistake, Zadorov is not like a Derek Forbert when we tried pairing him with McAvoy. That's not even close to what Zadorov is. I saw some takes like that, and I saw Bruins signing this guy or signing another bottom pairing defenseman to play with McAvoy. I don't think it's like that. I mean, I think Zadorov's way better than that. He can skate better. He can shoot better. He's a little more... His offensive numbers actually were decent last year, and his analytics for that. But yeah, I mean, he's very physical. Bruins needed that style on defense. Gone are the short defensemen, and I think you're seeing that across the league a lot. And I love short players. I was one myself when I played hockey, so I get it. But when it comes to the NHL level, and I hate being this guy, being a short defenseman is so tough. Obviously, Torrey Krug, he made a bag. Good for him. He's not having the greatest of stretches through his career right now, but good for him. I mean, getting the bag. But in my opinion, I just don't think short defensemen can really get the job done. And I was a hater on moving on from Krug at the time, but I will say I think it's benefited us, and I think we thought Grzelcyk was going to kind of, take over that role, and he just didn't. And I'm kind of glad we kind of moved on from Grzelcyk. But anyways, going a little off topic now. Let's go and talk about the prospects, because that is something a lot of people are worried about. Here's the problem with the Bruins prospects. It's not that they're bad. It's because we don't know if they're bad or good. That's the problem. We don't know what we have. That's the most difficult thing I have with this prospect pool right now. Lysell, Merkulov. Ooh, it really tapers off after that. That's the one thing that concerns me. Patra, I don't really consider a prospect. Lowride, not a prospect, obviously. So that is the thing that concerns me. What do we have? That's the problem. It's not that they're bad necessarily. We just don't know if they are good or not. That's the biggest issue right now. And obviously we're gonna know in coming years what kind of prospects we have. Like, will Dean Latorno really to turn out? We'll see. So that's the problem with the prospects. I want to touch on that a little. I wouldn't like put them at like the worst prospect pool in the league, which is just arguable, but they're low. There's no doubt they're low. And there's an argument for 32 in the league, but I wouldn't put them there. But that's the problem. We just don't exactly know what we have. We are going to see, because I'm Lysell or Merkulov, I think we'll probably end up getting a spot in the lineup, whether it's in the top 6 forward role or in the bottom 6 on the wing, probably on the third line. We'll see. So, and the upcoming free agents for these Boston Bruins next season. Biggest one is Brad Marchand. What exactly is his next contract going to look like? I think a lot of people are a bit concerned about that. I am a little, but again, I don't think Marchand's going to be asking for too much of a bag. I think, he's going to kind of go the Bergeron route and take, maybe a cheap 1-year deal or 2-year deal. Because if you ask me, I think he's got 2, maybe 3 years left in him. But I love the guy, and I hope he keeps producing for us and keeps, getting that great playing time. And if he wants the bag, he deserves it. But I don't think he will necessarily ask for that. And as far as other free agents go for the Bruins, Trent Frederick is coming up. Beecher's coming up. Brazeau, obviously. So we'll see. It's gonna be very interesting what exactly guys like that get. Wotherspoon on the list. I mean, Wotherspoon obviously is more of a depth guy, but he was very serviceable last season. But I think, honestly, one of the most interesting ones for me is Trent Frederick, what he'll get, because he's been a good depth player for us. He's, I feel like he's reached that ceiling of, third-line scorer. He's, I think he's the best that he's going to be at, and I think if he can consistently, keep scoring at the rate he's scoring, like last season, I think it's very good. I like the way he's really the player he's turned out to be. I was a big proponent of maybe, he was just a fourth-line ceiling guy in 2021, but I thought he really turned out to be solid, and he's turned into a real solid bottom sixer, and I think that's a guy you definitely want to find a way to keep. I don't think he'll be asking for much. I could see maybe a $4.1 million deal or maybe a $3.7 million deal, and you could even maybe get him down for 3 or 4 years, which is something I'd be interested in. Beecher, coming up, I don't think, again, he'll be asking for much, maybe $1 million, $2 million, unless he has a ridiculous season this year, which I hope he does. But I don't think you're going to be seeing too much crazy stuff. Next offseason next year isn't as concerning. I don't think the Bruins are kind of locked into a bit of a 2 to 3 year plan. Obviously, that'll come up with Jeremy Swayman contract, which I'm very eager to talk about because I'm a bit fired up about that one. I think it'd be interesting to talk about. So, yeah, I think that's pretty much it for the state of the Boston Bruins of this topic. So, we can go ahead and move on to the next one, which I am super psyched to talk about. And that is not the Jeremy Swayman contract talks. That is the trade options, which actually I lied. I fooled you guys. Okay, I'm joking. It is the trade options that we're going to discuss first, and then we're going to talk about Jeremy Swayman, which I'm very excited to do. So I want to go ahead and talk about what are the trade options this season when it comes to trade deadline, because I don't necessarily think Fabian Lysell is going to come into the lineup and solve all their problems. And I don't think Morgan Geekie is going to come into the lineup and just turn into a ridiculous top 6 player. Lysell, I think, can be good. And I'm hoping he turns into that. But I wouldn't put all your chips on that necessarily. I think it's okay to go into the season with this. I like this plan. I really like it, actually. But I think what's going to happen is they're going to end up having to trade for a top 6 forward. And they have the assets to do that, which is fine. So, I think an interesting one that I saw, and I wanted to go ahead and take a little look at it, is what if Taylor Hall has 1 year left in his deal this coming season. The Blackhawks, I don't think are going to be very good again. Taylor Hall's going to be on the trading block again, probably. He does have that no trade clause, so, who knows. But I think you'd waive it to go back to Boston. Should the Bruins potentially try to make a Taylor Hall trade happen to bring him back here? I think there's a possibility. He does play left wing. That's the, only problem. But I think it's very doable. And I think it would be very, very, very interesting. I mean, obviously, you'd have to maybe move your lineup a bit, So, but if you brought Taylor Hall, can he play the right side? I don't know. He's never really done it in his career. So who knows? But nonetheless, that's kind of where I'm at with that Taylor Hall. I think that's more of a fever dream, but it's an interesting option to look at for sure. And on the right wing spectrum, so I'll just pull it up here. For a potential trade, I mean, Anthony Mantha's a guy that I really look at. He's, 30 years old. 1 year deal with the Flames. I don't expect the Flames to be very good this year again. Flames want to maybe sell cheap pieces, get a little something back. Anthony Mantha is, a cheap top 6 option that could be very, very serviceable come playoff time. Could be a Tarasenko type deal like last year that the Panthers did with the Senators. So I think Mantha, for me, he's kind of at the top of my list right now as, not breaking the bank too much on options, because I understand maybe you want to trade the first if you're having a great season and, you think you can make a run at a cup, which I think they can. But with the prospect pool being so slim and not knowing what you have, I think you really, really want to try and shy away from trading your first round pick from the Bruins this year. I think that would be the smartest thing to do. And obviously, we can trade for guys that aren't just, 1 year deals away. But I think Mantha, if you're just looking for a rental, I think is a good option. But he's also a guy that maybe you want to extend in the offseason. I don't know exactly how much cap space the Bruins have next season. I think, it's about 9.3 and 9.35. Sorry. So it's decent. It's a decent amount there that that you can potentially bring Mantha back if he has a solid season if you bring him into Boston. So, but guys that are 2 years out, maybe maybe 3, but I don't know if I'd go that far. Alex Tuck. Do the Sabres want to move on from him? I don't know. It's a cheap deal, 4.7. He's top 6 scorer, producer. I think that's a guy I want to look at. Another guy that is going to be controversial, but I think it'd be interesting to take a look at because you could get him for peanuts potentially. And if he turns out, it could be very good. But the money is definitely a lot. So you'd probably have to pay a little more than peanuts to get him because I'm sure he's going to need to be retained salary because he's got that 2 years. It's Patrick Laine. He wants to trade out. He's not been what he was when he started his career. But maybe a change of scenery could benefit him. Who knows? I think that's an option to look at. The only thing is the money. He's making 8.7 right now for the next 2 seasons. That's the difficult thing. You need to get that salary retained, which means you're going to have to give something up, not necessarily for the player, but for the salary retained. Another guy is Jordan Eberle. He's 36. Maybe he's not really too much of a top 6 player anymore, but still interesting to look at. And he's older, so definitely probably a rental, And I think the last guy I would probably have on my list is I'd probably maybe Eli Tolvanen. 2 years out again, it's 3.1 $4 million contract. Everly's making 4.7. Again, I'd probably go Tolvin over Everly, but Everly would probably be cheaper. And he's got 2 years left, so again, you're probably not paying that much. Seattle. But again, I think Seattle will probably be in a position to be fighting for a playoff spot. So these guys are probably not going to move. But again, just options that, I'm trying to toss out there. But nonetheless, if we can go ahead and now talk about what we've all been waiting for. I know everybody's been waiting for it. And I'm going to be ranting on this one. All right, this one, I'm going to be talking about this one a bit because I want to break down everything from this situation. So basically, Jeremy Swayman and the Bruins are in contract negotiations for a new deal. It just recently came out from Elliot Friedman that the Bruins and Swayman are not close on a deal. And I know that can cause alarm bells to ring for everyone, and it did for me. But I looked at it this way, and I said, well, one side, and I don't know which side, is trying to put pressure on the other, I don't know which side is trying to do it, but whoever's doing it is honestly just doing their job, and it sucks. But I think to say they're not close, obviously, I don't know. I'm not Jeremy Swayman. I have no evidence to back up this claim. Just looking at it from my perspective, I'm trying to see it as it just would be shocking to me for both sides to really want him to be there, for them to not be close on a deal when we're very close to training camp. It just would be very shocking to me. So I want to break this down. I want to go back to last summer. Swayman and the Bruins obviously need a new contract. Bruins a tight cap, they had a different number for Swayman, and, blah, 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 whatever. Bruins decided, hey, we're not going to take you to arbitration. We want to work this out. Well, Swayman says, Swayman, obviously, and his team, and his agent, of course, they decide, hey, let's go to arbitration. So they decide, okay, we're going to go to arbitration. And again, maybe it wasn't Jeremy Swayman's agent who necessarily said, yeah, let's go to arbitration. Maybe it was Jeremy Swayman that said to his agent, hey, let's go to arbitration, So I don't want to claim or slander anyone because, again, I think either way, both sides are just looking out for the best interest for Swayman's agent is just looking out for Swayman's best interest. He's being stubborn, but that's just what good agents do. He's trying to get his client the number he needs. And I get it. But it can be frustrating from a fan's perspective. But again, it could be also the other way. It could be the Bruins who are leaking this and trying to put pressure on Swayman's camp, which, ironically, I don't think necessarily would do. But that would be a very Bruins thing to do, as they sometimes we make not so smart decisions. But nonetheless, yeah. So and then throughout the season, Swayman's saying about how tough the arbitration process was, and that's totally understandable. Totally understandable. But he elected to go to arbitration. So he really doesn't have, I don't want to say he doesn't have a right to speak on it, but I know he has an absolute right to speak on it because arbitration sucks. We know that. But I will say it's tough for him to speak on it when he elected to go there. So, that being said, how does this exactly impact the contract negotiations? Well, believe it or not, I think it's actually going to help them. So, whether it was Swayman's agent, whether it was Swayman who pushed his agent on, whether it was the Boston Bruins who leaked it, someone obviously told Elliot Friedman something. And if this is true, which I kind of feel like it's a little, I'm just speculating of it, kind of feel like it's a little bit of a nothing burger. Friedman also did say that, there's still time, we'll see where it goes, so, But, to me, I feel like it's a nothing burger. But nonetheless, Swayman and the Bruins both said they want him to be there. I think this is actually going to help the negotiations. And we've seen this before, and it can be a good thing. And I think it's going to ramp it up, and I think, both sides are going to come to the table, willing to be more compromisable because they both want to get a deal done. I mean, Swayman wants to be here. So I really think this is a nothing burger, and I think, this is just kind of, your typical RFA drama. We've seen this in the past, so I'm not too worried. I think everything is going to be okay in the long run. I think Swayman's going to sign a deal. Hopefully it's for long term at a good number. To ask me what I want that number to be, I would not pay Jeremy Swayman $9 million. Love the player. Love the guy. Seems like a great guy. He's a great player. But I wouldn't pay him $9 million. We need to remember that during the season, there was a time he had a pretty bad stretch of hockey, guys. And I understand that. Goalies do that. But we need this guy to be a number one starter. And a lot of people are saying, I don't buy the argument about a starter's workload. It's a little different because can Swayman play 3-4 games in a row? Well, in the playoffs, he proved he could. Showed up when it mattered. Great. But I remember at the All-Star break, I believe, there was a time where he just was not playing that well. He just wasn't. To me, you need strong consistency. He's usually given that to you. He had a great season last year. Whatever. He had a lull during the season. But I just think $9 million for a goalie is so tough to spend. I think the number's probably going to be 8. I would like it to be 7.5, but I think it's going to be 8. And I can live with an 8 times 8. 9 times 8's pushing it. I think they have just... I don't even think they have enough cap space for that, so they have to make a trade. We'll see, but I don't think it's going to come down to that. I think both sides, they want to work out a deal, so I think really there's nothing to worry about here. But that's just my take on it right now. Who knows? You could look back at this, and I could be completely wrong and look like an idiot. But who knows? That's kind of what I feel right now. But anyways, that is kind of all I have for you guys today. And I hope you guys did enjoy the first episode of the Boston Bruins Memes podcast. I know I did. I'm excited to continue to get this rolling and continue to work on the new plans for all of this. So, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. So, have a good one, everyone.